Apparently Hassan Reddick's going to play, but whatever. Anyways, final story, Colin, is the Minnesota Vikings. They were a penalty away from a potential game-winning field goal that would have kept their undefeated season going. However, an illegal formation penalty pushed them out of field goal range, and they lost their first game of the season to the Lions. It was a great game. Kevin O'Connell spoke about how the small margin of error is when you're one of the league's top teams.
You're not going to, really good teams, you're not going to just steamroll through the game and have perfect plays on every play, but you better make sure it's them that's causing, truly some of those things to happen instead of some of the self-inflicted things. It might not seem like a big deal at the time or when it is in the game, but that's what kind of football games I believe are out in front of this team.
Yeah, it was a great game between two teams that could play for the NFC Championship. I thought it was great football.
I'm the kind of nerd who watches football and takes notes. I have in my notes that Sam Darnold took his first snap in the second half trailing against the Lions this season. Like, I wouldn't overreact to the loss. There were some good takeaways.
Detroit's the new San Francisco.
It sort of feels that way.
I mean, just like 8 great players, the difference is theirs are younger and San Francisco's are getting older and creakier.
So that dovetails into where I'm going with this. Vikings at Rams, Thursday night, short week.
That's a fascinating game because home teams with good coaches and quarterbacks have an advantage at home. But the fact they lost, I like Minnesota.
Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure we were the first of any sports show to mention this, but teams that play the Lions the next week have lost every game this season.
Wow.
They beat you up physically in the trenches. So now not only do you play the Lions, but you have a short week, travel across the country to face the Rams.
Wow.
Colin, we saw Jared Goff. Remember Brian Flores' blitz rattled every quarterback this season. You know who wasn't rattled?
Goff.
Jared Goff. He was amazing. Well, Matt Stafford's pretty freaking incredible against the blitz. I wonder if the Rams are the side here. This is an interesting game. Cooper Kupp's back. Your guy. Line's at 3.5. At 3.5, I'm taking the Rams.
Yeah, no, that's a really good.
Now, Thursday night favorites have been very good this season.
Star quarterbacks at home, standalone games this year have been very good.
And isn't this O'Connell's a McVay disciple, I believe.
Yep. Mentor
versus protege. This is
okay. Okay. My head was about to explode there. Let's talk about this. My God. You're gonna pick the Rams to beat the Vikings now. I understand it's a short week. I understand they played the Lions and physical, but the Lions beat other teams that were nowhere near as good as the Vikings. Okay? You know who one of the teams that the Lions beat who then lost the follow-up week? The Rams, who were decimated by injuries. Like, can we settle down here? Then the Lions beat the Cardinals, right? Who aren't exactly this high-powered, high-flying team. Like, we need to relax. Then they beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys didn't play after that because they were on a bye. So that already now shortens this whole idea of like, oh, after you play the Lions, you lose the following week. Like, let's relax here, okay? Let's relax. This is the Vikings. Like, what are we talking about? This is a top contender team. This is a top team. What we saw here on Sunday was 2 great teams. Well, I know they said, oh, this is the NFC Championship game. I keep calling it the Super Bowl. I understand, obviously, they're both 2 NFC teams. I get it, guys. I get it. But this was the Super Bowl. This was an unbelievable game with 2 great top teams, well-prepared teams that both have weapons, that are both physical, that can get the job done. So I think the way how they were able to start this game for the Vikings was huge, right? I mean, they were able to go up, 10 to nothing like that, right? And, they were able to stop the fake punt, right? Then they get a quick, easy rushing touchdown, right? Fans are full force. I mean, it was just, they forced a turnover. I mean, like, they got a perfect start. And then the game got away from them a little bit, right? You had that really hard interception, which you just got to give it up to Branch. He's just been in his bag, right? I mean, he's just been a just top defender, right? He just made a great play, great read. He's been playing out of his mind. Sometimes when that happens, you just got to shake his hand and say, yeah, man, good job, right? You beat me in that moment. But I mean, the touchdown to Jefferson from Darnold, it just continues to be honestly like the best play in all of football. I mean, you just throw it up, and it just feels like Jefferson's just gonna catch it. I mean, like it almost feels like cheating, right? Like it's really, it's like not even fair how good that connection can be. The defense for the Vikings forced a ton of offensive line penalties for the Lions. I mean, the Lions started to kind of not, I don't want to say they unraveled, but they looked very uncomfortable, right? They were not as comfortable as they looked, say, versus the Cowboys, right? And then a huge punch out for a fumble to take the lead in the fourth. I mean, the game itself was just such this. The Vikings had the momentum to start the game, and then the Lions absolutely took it back, and then the Lions really had the momentum, but then the Vikings, without a doubt, took it back, and we're like, no, like, we are the Vikings, we are undefeated for a reason, and then they lost it though at the end of the game, right? And it's an unfortunate kind of like, we get momentum, you get momentum. We get momentum, you get momentum, right? It was one of those things, who has the ball last. And like I wrote in my notes, could just never fully take control of the game, right? It was a tough, gritty loss, but the truth is they never backed down, and these are legit 2 Super Bowl contenders. And so when you lose a game like that, that's just the way it goes. And the other thing that I wrote is, and I think it's really honestly the most relevant, is that the reality is that the Lions just played slightly better. Just a few percentage points better, right? Jared Goff was 22 for 25, 88%. Sam Darnold was 22 for 27, 81%, right? Goff had 280. Darnold had 260. Goff had 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Lions running game had 144 yards. The Vikings had 139, right? The total yards for the Lions was 391. Vikings, 383. The Lions had 19 first downs. The Vikings had 16 first downs. So you're talking about so tiny. You convert another a first down here. You get an extra couple rushing yards here and there. You win the game. And it's like Kevin O'Connell, because I wrote these notes well before I saw Kevin O'Connell talk. And it's like, yeah, that's what he said. The margin of error is so small. And that's exactly what I wrote down. So you're talking about so little things here. And the Vikings come away with the win. And again, everyone's praising the Lions now as being the best team in the NFL. Or one of the best, or the best, depending on who you ask. So this was a tough win. A tough loss for the Vikings. But a great game overall. And the truth is, for games like this, of course you want to win. Of course. But at the end of the day, what I always look for is, do you belong? Right? Do you belong? Because the Vikings have had some really great wins and some easy wins, right? Against teams that are not so good. And when you see the Lions, who are playing really great right now, who are in their bag, and you clearly show that you belong with them, and that if you just clean a few things up, you're the one that comes away with that win. At the end of the day, that's all you're really looking for, and that's all you can ask for. Because you can't expect to win every single game, right? And that's also what Kevin O'Connell was saying, right? You can't expect every drive, every play to be perfect. It's just not the way it's going to unfold. That's just not the way how games are going to unfold. It's not the way how the season is going to unfold. That's why undefeated seasons are non-existent in the NFL. So it makes sense. To me, this isn't like proof. Oh, this is proof. Because a lot of people are such prisoners of the moment. They think, oh, if the Lions beat the Vikings, or the Vikings beat the Lions, it's proof that they're better. And I don't see it that way. Even if the Vikings won, I wouldn't say that that's proof that they're better than the Lions. It's just the way how the game went, right? Especially when you're talking about division. That's why you play, you play them twice. Because it's like, everyone's going to be like, oh, the Lions are better than the Vikings, and they proved that. And it's like, okay, and then if the Vikings beat the Lions in the next game, what does that prove then? That they're equal, right? Like, it doesn't always make sense to me. So what this game proved to me more than anything is that this is 2 top contenders. It'll come down, if they do face each other, it'll come down to who minimizes their mistakes more. The margin of error is so fine. So who can eke out those extra yards? Who can minimize their turnovers? who can play better situational football and who can convert that third down when you gotta have it. Who comes up just short and who doesn't, right? And again, and it might not even come down to that. It might come down to just who has the ball last. These are two great teams, and it's just the way how the game unfolded, it's just, they get to kick the field goal with 10 seconds left, and you don't, right? Like, that's always the tough thing about football, is that it's not equal chances. Baseball, it's equal chances. You bat, we bat. You bat, we bat. You bat, we bat. Right? Like my dad always says, there's no clock in baseball. Unfortunately, football has a clock. So sometimes that is just the way how this game unfolds. Because if there was another 2 minutes left in this game, and then the Lions kick the field goal, it's like, who's to say that the Vikings wouldn't have marched right back down and kicked their field goal, kicked their, got a touchdown, whatever it may be. So I think there's a lot of positive takeaways from this game. I think if you're a Vikings fan, you shouldn't be too upset. You should honestly be encouraged, because I know a lot of Vikings fans were kind of feeling disrespected about the perception of this team. And you can see that the Vikings have clearly proved to not be fool's gold. Sam Darnold stepped up. The Vikings as a whole stepped up. They proved to be a top contender in the NFL. And if you're talking about week 7 games, that's all you're looking for. That's all you can really ask for at the end of the day. In a week 7 game, do we look like a contender? Do we look like we are truly a great team? And the answer was an absolutely undeniable yes. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings loss versus the Lions? What do you think it shows versus what it doesn't? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.